Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Daolang titled Future Negatives. And if we switch over to here, I'm hoping that I have the translation right for Future Negatives. I had to get that done via DeepL. But we're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. It's really pretty with the guitars and woodwinds. Interesting with the filtered vocals off the bat. Fantastic bass response, dude. Oh, I've got to log into Bilibili again because it keeps asking every 2 fucking minutes. Great. Great. I enjoy... I love Bilibili, I really do. I mean, I enjoy the sound, the diversity to the percussion with the different cymbal, trap beats, the kicks, and the claps there. The re-synths on the side are very atmospheric and surround you in the headphones and almost make it sound exotic. There's a very somber tone to the rest of the instruments, and the melodies and the vocals harmonize really well interval-wise with the core elements. It's a pleasant listen so far, for sure. Oh, nice use of falsetto. I mean, I don't really have a lot else to say about that I won't mention in the conclusion. I mean, like, there's additional elements being presented as we go through, such as with those sequences on the side there, that kind of work as 16th note sparklies. I don't know, sometimes words fail me, dude. The sparklies are cute. We're repeating those motifs on the woodlands on the side to, I suppose... See, that's the thing, like, what I've been learning recently with fair use is that stating what's occurring is not really transformative, and that's absolutely right. It's part of why I'm in two minds about the live streams that I do, as well as the fan requests, because I'm just not really giving myself an opportunity to do anything particularly different with it. The way that I get away with it in these videos is that I have the conclusion analysis at the end, which provably states that I'm trying to hear this simply so that I could do something different with it. I could understand if someone looked at this and thought, no, this is ridiculous, no, get rid of this is not fair use, because it technically speaking isn't. If I'm simply like stating stuff like, oh, that's the same thing repeated again. You know? I think self-awareness is important. I'm unsure if they necessarily needed to have the theme motif repeat itself as much as this. I understand it sounds pretty, but I don't know if it's necessarily improving the experience for the listener. There's mild variations of the triplets on the hi-hats, for example, but there's no difference in the lead elements and almost seems empty because of it. It is nice to have a fade out though. I mean, it's a very classy way to finish so that it's not abrupt and blunt. It's also a nice way of doing it if you don't necessarily know how to end a track. Do you know what I mean? Here we go. This is as close as we'll get. I don't know what Billy Billy does. I mean, I can't remember what Billy Billy does if you don't stop it before the end. Maybe it just goes towards another track, but we'll see. We'll see how we go. All right, so I have translations here, which have been kind of provided by Rossor, you know. So that's nice. Thank you to Rossor for providing these translated lyrics. This is for this track from Daolang, titled Future Negatives, if I'm not mistaken. Yesterday seemed like a feather dance. Today is the den of foxes and rabbits in North Mang. Rock cave, it's cold. Days like this in this kind of weather. Fox just seen that cannot. And this will become and go in a cycle like a track right in this tireless body. Pairs of hoes and a repeated tilling have become guns. The foxes appeared in the landlord's litter, swallowed all the signals of war. Dancing day and night in the Buddhist dawn that ends in black. That's actually a hell of a dark ending to this track, you know, excuse the pun. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from Daolang, titled Future Negatives. What do I think this song is about? I think this track is about someone who is commenting on how things used to be more peaceful and less nasty. And now we've changed to a situation nowadays where things are more industrial and the scythes have turned to guns. And maybe there used to be violence back in the day, but nothing like this. And the foxes, you know, they used to be with us. We used to all be in the same situation, but now they're separated from us, attacking us from afar. And the us versus them has grown wider. And what's occurred is that we're all just dancing in a cycle that goes into black because we are unable to really change it. I think that's what it is here, is that we simply exist to die, and the people that are in control are laughing at us from their peaches and willow trees. That's how I've interpreted this track. And to be honest with you, I think that's one of the most metal things I've heard in quite a while. That is more severe than a lot of the hardest metal that I listen to. The idea that life has changed so much that some things are simply meaningless now. And while we have made so many attempts at becoming better as people to try and improve our lives, it simply made them ironically worse. Like you look at cell phones, for example. I'm not going to do a whole massive boomer take on them because I could if you wanted to, but I'm not here for that. I'm here to review the music. It's simply that while cell phones have a lot of utility, we literally apparently lose 10 IQ points by using them in the mornings when we wake up. It makes us dumber using cell phones because they do a lot of the thinking for us that we might do otherwise. We don't have to put as much effort in, we don't get as much brain size. You know what I mean? I suppose that's the idea behind that. But yeah, I get it. I get what this track is about. I think that there was a lot of charisma and diversity to the performance here vocally that I appreciated. I think that they sang really well. They not only did a bit of rapping, a bit of falsetto, a bit of vocal fry, crying out, the filtered stuff at the beginning. There was a lot of different styles here. There was some backing vocals and harmonies as well on the sides there that were wonderful. And ultimately, It was soothing and satisfying until you knew what the track was about, and then it was horrifying, right? It's almost like the way that we delivered it emotionally was that of acceptance. And it sucks. Not that the performance sucks. I think the vocal performance was great from Daolang. It's just the situation that they're describing sucks, if that makes sense. But I suppose beyond that, we had this situation with Daolang where the track itself, how long was it? It was like 4 minutes 48, so it was just outside the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot. The previous track that I reviewed was just patently too long, in my opinion, for what it had within it. I think this track, if you had understood the lyrics natively, if you understood the story, would have made more sense within this length, because there were multiple verses where we extended our understanding of the situation and provided more context. That said, I think by the last minute we'd already had most of those verse parts, so we simply had instrumental sections that were repeated from previous bits, and there wasn't a lot of the diversity that we had earlier on with the instrumental arrangement. Primarily, well, there was, but it wasn't as exciting because it had already been put in. And when things have already been introduced, you need to either keep them, they need to be so interesting that when they come in, it's still likable each time, or you need to find some other way to spice it up to make it more exciting. And if I'm completely honest with you, I think that while the individual ingredients instrumentally were thoroughly palatable and I enjoyed hearing them and they were well produced and everything, I nonetheless found myself becoming a little bit disengaged at the end, primarily because I wasn't actually hearing anything particularly different, which is a shame. I almost feel like you could have cut out the last 45 seconds of it, had it just under 4 minutes, and still had the verses, and it would have been equally as good. I think that if you'd had an alternative sort of lead solo, like another lead instrument doing something different on top of there, you could have potentially justified that. You had the guitars in the start, throughout there, you could have potentially done something with the guitars there. The woodwind could have done another solo or something like that and developed upon that. It's simply there's a limitation with the complexity of the performance there that I think undermines the amount of effort that went into actually making it, which is a shame. But if I talk about the individual instruments there, the guitar with those broken chord arpeggios was wonderful there, very somber and very sophisticated, suited the mood well. The woodwinds on the side there was beautiful, and that was a nice little idea that kept playing, albeit to a detriment later on when not a lot changed and we had it maybe for the 50th time. But I enjoyed the first 49. The bass line when it came in with the drums was very powerful and sat underneath the vocals incredibly well. It was nicely controlled and sidechained and revolved around those bass notes really well without being too controversial with the note choices. There was a lot of complexity to the percussive parts there. We really honed in on those key elements like the kick, the claps, and then the hi-hats there, and that was wonderful. And any other instruments we had in there were simply ways of spicing things up or acting as sub-layers to the alternatives, but the fundamentals were covered, and I think that the track sounded very complete. Again, it's just a shame that the theme was put forward to the listener so early on. It's almost like we were meant to meditate on what had been spoken to us, but because I didn't understand the language, I couldn't understand what I was meant to meditate on, if that makes sense at all. Outside of that, though, what I will say is that we handled the motif well. It did kind of sound like we were sitting there thinking in the fields, trying to understand what the hell was going on around us, almost as if you can watch the people dancing into the black. I get it. The theme was well handled there. The combination of the elements made it sound like that. The vocals told the story well, and I'm happy that I got the opportunity to listen to it, even though it's made me feel a little bit sad. But outside of that, the recording, mixing, and mastering, the studio production was tight. I think that things were well handled within the frequency spectrum and stereo field. The vocals were nice and present, whether they were the falsettos, chest voice, side parts, or filter bits in the start. The bass was nice and tight in the low end with the drums side chaining neatly there and providing a great firm percussion there, with nice and wide in the stereo field as well, with things like the woodwind, the lead woodwind kind of placed on the right side to combat the monotony of the lead always being in the center with a lot of music that I listen to, which I appreciate. I think that leveling the tracks was good. There were no resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum. The leveling and the dynamic range was good. Like, I know we had that fade out at the end, but things were not the same loudness the entire time. The percussion had various little nuances there. And while it was a continuous tone to it, there was life to it, and it wasn't just a big old square wave in the waveform. And I think that finally it was nice and loud without pumping, so limiting bus compression was handled well. I mean, this is effectively my review of this track from Daolang titled Future Negatives, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show us some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page, or the Bilibili page, should I say, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.